6 p.m. in Mapanda, that is in the Douala 4 subdivision, same time right here in Aqua Douala. Good evening, dear viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for taking the rendezvous with us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. First, our major stories. At least 2 persons were electrocuted to death at the Denier Poto neighborhood in Douala 2 subdivision. The victims were electrocuted at about 4 a.m. today while attempting to make some electrical connections in a private residence. The return of electric energy provoked a fire incident. Meantime, prominent political figure Barrister Keremuna hits back at Minister Paul Tanganji for discouraging remarks on voters' registration. According to a lawyer, the outing of the minister is a clear sign of total panic at the helm of the government. We have greater details of the outing of Barrister Keremuna in this edition of the news. And today we equally take you out of the country where millions of Chadians headed to the polls today, Monday, to cast their ballot in a long-delayed presidential elections that is set to end the 3 years of military rule under interim president Muhammad Debi Itno. That's it for our major stories. Stay with us for details and more. If you're just joining us, then no, this is a 6 p.m. edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. We begin with a sad story. It is a Black Monday for the population of Denier Poto in the New Bell neighborhood Douala 2 subdivision. The inhabitants woke up this morning to discover the corpse of twin brothers aged 40 who were electrocuted to death. The brothers, according to local sources, were struggling to resolve an electrical fault when a fire outbreak occurred. We have details with Eselu Siliengo.
The inhabitants of Denier Poto in New Bell Douala 2 subdivision woke up this Monday morning in shock and disbelief. Twin brothers aged 40 died after they were electrocuted as a result of a fire outbreak. An inhabitant of Denier Poto recounts the tragic incident. We were informed that an electrical cable caught flames. One of the twins got into the ceiling to see what is happening, but unfortunately, he got electrocuted. His brother, trying to save him, equally got electrified. The fire outbreak, according to local sources, was caused by frequent power cuts, which the neighborhood has been experiencing for the past days. Informed about the incident, the army rescue team descended on the scene to save the victims, but it was too late. Their bodies have been deposited in a mortuary. Family members remain unconsolable.
A sad situation over there at the Denier Poto neighborhood. And we stay right here in the city of Douala as civil employees of the Cameroon Textile company SICAM take to the streets once more to denounce what they qualify as failed promises made by the management. They are accusing their employers of owing them several months of salary arrears worth billions of francs CFA. Malaglori was at the head office of SICAM and she now explains the situation at hand.
Salary arrears, 2,500 francs is a sum that was shared to each employer of the Cameroon Textile company SICAM on the International Labour Day. The workers are now denouncing the fact that the company gave them the sum of 2,500 francs on this day instead of paying their entire salary. A day set aside to pay attention to the worries of workers.
On a donné à chaque employé de la SICAM 2500 francs CFA. C'est tout pour aller fêter le 1er mai. Sans paille, une entreprise qui produit ses propres pagnes.
According to the laborers, they are being manipulated by their employees. They claim the management had agreed to pay their entire salaries worth 1,660,000,000 francs CFA. A promise which is yet to be fulfilled.
Il était question qu'on attende jusqu'au 30 avril au plus tard pour que ces 13 mois-là soient intégralement payés.
The outraged employees took to the streets to decry what they qualify as exploitation.
Nous prenons les dettes au quartier, chez les boutiquiers et tout, en nous nourrissant d'espoir. Comme on nous nourrit d'espoir, c'est comme ça que nous nourrissons aussi. Nous avons perdu un collègue ici à la SICAM. On a appelé ceux de Garoua parce qu'ils sont aussi en grève. Et ils ont dit que il y a 2 collègues qui sont aussi morts là-bas. Et il y a un que son enfant est décédé, il a porté le corps, il a amené à l'entrée de l'entreprise.
In addition to salary arrears, the staff are demanding payment of various bonuses and that the company pays their monthly contributions to the social insurance fund. SICAM is one of the oldest state-owned enterprises in Cameroon, which is currently battling with financial crisis. The company is hit by a structural and management crisis, with a debt estimated at more than 22 billion francs CFA.
And now persons living around the cattle market in Bonaberry decried a huge damage caused by the cows wandering in that area. They explained to our reporter that the children are exposed to all sorts of life-threatening danger, as many of them have been attacked by the said cows on several occasions, resulting to fatalities. Malaglary now reports on the challenges faced by those living around this cattle market.
Chinda is a worker at the construction site found in the cattle market at Carrefour Musiques in Bonaberry, Douala 4 subdivision. He says working on this site has been very challenging with the presence of these cows that are not controlled. He adds that the project, which was meant to be completed within a period of 3 months, is now forced to exceed the time frame. This is because the cows come after work to destroy what they have already done for the day. And this has been going on and on.
On essaie de faire la barrière, elle détruit chaque minute.
Residents living around the market say it's quite challenging for them. They equally complain that their children often wander around the site, exposing them to danger.
This is my house here, and every time we have to be inside the fence. And even sometimes when the gates are left open, the cows come right inside the compound and attack in the compound. And several times I've seen bloodshed in this market where cows will pick people by their horns and wound them. And some people, most of the people even end up dying. Some people are being taken to the hospital. Being here, the smell of the drops of the cows, and just the discomfort of seeing people around like this every day. And the market is 3 times a week.
Locals are appealing for an urgent government intervention as they face huge damages on their properties.
Pleading to the government to do something to remove this market from here, to take it to where it is supposed to be, so that we can have at least access to our buildings and access to our properties.
While going about their daily activities during market days, which falls on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, the population are now forced to take extra measures for their safety and that of their family members.
Cameroonian political actors lambast the communique of Territorial Administration Minister Paul Atanganji, watering down efforts to boost the nationwide drive for massive voters registration on the electoral list. For stating that Cameroonians should not be compelled to register, political actors say the minister's declaration is a sign of panic and violation of the law. We have details with Fomi Armstrong Sander.
Cameroonian political actors have been reacting differently to the communique of Minister Paul Atanganji of Territorial Administration, specifying that registration on the electoral list is not mandatory. Hence, Cameroonians should not be forced out of their homes or be compelled by any pressure means to register on the electoral list. While some political actors see it as a violation of the law by people meant to protect the law in Cameroon, others say the minister's declaration is a sign of panic on the part of the governing class in Cameroon. Among political figures who see Minister Paul Atanganji as panicking is Batune Akeremuna of the Now movement. On his official social media account, Akeremuna says if anyone was looking for signs of the effect that the massive nationwide drive for voters registration is producing, the minister has just provided one for the world to see. Full panic, he stated. as a responsible citizen, it is your civic duty to actively engage in the democratic process. Registering to vote is an important step in fulfilling that duty, he went further to state. Reacting on Equinoxe Television's flagship program, La Vérité en Face, Honorable Mayor Patricia Tumainundam Joya, National President of the Cameroon Democratic Union, the CDU party, qualified the outing as a violation of the law. Agreeing with Akere Munava, registering to vote is a pertinent civic duty. The CDU National President recalls that voting is even obligatory in certain countries. For a government to spread a message that dissuades citizens from getting on the voters' register is simply unheard of, they agree. At the end of his reaction, Akere Muna categorically stated thus, "We will go out, we will encourage citizens to go and register."
And still in politics, some inhabitants of the south region of Cameroon hindered the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front SDF party, Honorable Joshua Osei, from visiting some areas of the region yesterday. They mounted barricades on the roads taken by Honorable Joshua Osei, disrupting the Akomtu Biwung Bulu lab of a store in the south region. Babila Jonathan files in greater details.
In this amateur footage, Honorable Osei Joshua, National Chairman of the Social Democratic Front SDF political party, is hindered from penetrating some areas of the south region of Cameroon. Young people in this part of the region have barred the way to the Member of Parliament and politician and his delegation. The Akomde Biwongbulu lab of his store of the south region is punctured.
We are living in a country where we are talking about fundamental freedoms, freedom of movement, freedom of political associations, and we still behave as if we were in the times of the Europeans ruling Cameroon or ruling Africa. A political sacrilege that a political leader will be stopped from entering another region to discuss with the people.
The Social Democratic Front National Communications Secretary Chadian Henry blames the situation on manipulation.
These youths are being manipulated, they are being misguided, and we know those faces behind such manipulations. But I feel very sorry for this country, because what is happening is not their doing. They have simply been manipulated to do what they did. However, it did not deter the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front to continue with his Meet the People tour.
From north to south, east to west, Honorable Osei Joshua has been on a nationwide tour and has not faced such an opposition in other parts of the country. This action of youths in President Paul Biya's region of origin and political stronghold of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, is qualified by right advocates and political analysts as an indication of a serious backslide in democracy in Cameroon.
And while Cameroonians are preparing for the upcoming 2025 elections, it is a different scenario in Chad as several Chadians based in Douala today were at the Chadian consulate to cast their votes for this year's presidential elections. While some denounce some irregularities noticed at the consulate, others say they already know who the winner of this year's election is. Our reporter Sedi Chakuto met some Chadian citizens and compiled this report for the 6 p.m. news.
Voting kicks off in Chad for presidential elections. Here in Douala, at least 70,000 Chadians who registered actively participated in the voting process in the presidential election in Chad. These Chadian citizens took their civic responsibility very seriously and seized this opportunity to exercise their rights and fulfill their duty as active members of the nation.
On a déjà longtemps souffert sous la chaleur, on a longtemps gémi et aujourd'hui nous nous sommes décidés. Et malgré qu'on a constaté certaines irrégularités et certaines fraudes qui se manigancent, mais nous sommes décidés d'être là et de surveiller nos voix jusqu'à ce que la victoire soit certaine.
During the voting process, some citizens observed some irregularities.
Et ce vote, si ça dépendait de moi, je préfère mieux qu'on annule les votes dans les consulats et les ambassades parce qu'il n'y a pas de crédibilité, il n'y a pas de transparence dans le vote à l'étranger. Hier, ils ont ramassé les gens du quartier qui n'ont pas de carte d'électeur. Même une seule carte électeur, 3-4 personnes votent. Une seule personne peut voter 2 à 3 fois. Et là, ce n'est plus, n'est-ce pas, le vote.
Beaucoup des Tchadiens résidents à Douala ne possèdent pas leur carte électeur. Bon, ils sont exclus, celui qui n'a pas la carte électeur, mais qui est enroulé dans le fichier, qui aurait oublié ou perdu, n'est pas autorisé de voter.
Though they face some challenges to vote, Chadian citizens already have an idea on who they want as president of their republic.
Le candidat du peuple puisse gagner ces élections, au moins pour la première fois. Nous voulons que cela se concrétise au Tchad et que le Tchad soit un exemple également pour l'Afrique centrale.
Le futur président est honnête et objectif. Dans ses discours, vous avez vu ses cahiers de charges. Il a présenté des projets qui doivent aider tout le monde, tous les Tchadiens de tous bords. Peu importe là où tu te retrouves. Un président qui a l'amour de faire venir ses compatriotes qui résident à l'étranger, c'est lui. Parce que ce sont ces jeux qui devaient, n'est-ce pas, profiter de la ressource, n'est-ce pas, de leur pays.
Note that results are expected on the 21st of May with a possible round on the 22nd of June.
Away from elections, we now take you to East Africa, precisely in Tanzania, which is currently on alert after weeks of torrential rains and floods, which ravaged some regions of East Africa, killing more than 100 people. And in Togo, the ruling Union for the Republic Party, UNI, has won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections held on April 29. A roundup of these stories and more with our reporter, Cedric Chakutio, once more.
As voting kicks off in Chad for presidential elections, here in Douala, at least 70,000 Chadians who registered actively participated in the voting process in the presidential election in Chad. These Chadian citizens took their civic responsibility very seriously and seized this opportunity to exercise their rights and fulfill their duty as active members of the nation. We suffered a lot under this hot sun and we continue suffering. But though we suffer, we decided to be here so as to vote. We want things to change in our country. During the voting process, some citizens observed some irregularities.
Et ce vote, si ça dépendait de moi, je préfère mieux qu'on annule les votes dans les...
This vote, if it depended on me, we are to cancel it here at the consulate and embassies. There is a lot of fraud. Yesterday, for example, they took people of another quarter who are not Chadians.
Une seule personne peut voter 2 à 3 fois. Et là, ce n'est plus, n'est-ce pas, le vote.
Beaucoup des Tchadiens résidents à Douala ne possèdent pas leur carte électeur. Bon, ils sont exclus, celui qui n'a pas la carte électeur, mais qui est enroulé dans le fichier, qui aurait oublié ou perdu, n'est pas autorisé de voter.
Though they face some challenges to vote, Chadian citizens already have an idea on who they want as president of their republic. The candidate for me who has to win these elections is one with good morale, one who thinks of his people, and he should be able to put our country on a good path.
Le futur président est honnête et objectif. Dans ses discours, vous avez vu ses cahiers de charges. Il a présenté des projets qui doivent aider tout le monde, tous les Tchadiens de tous bords. Peu importe là où tu te retrouves. Un président qui a l'amour de faire venir ses compatriotes qui résident à l'étranger, c'est lui. Parce que ce sont ces jeux qui devaient, n'est-ce pas, profiter de la ressource, n'est-ce pas, de leur pays.
Note that results are expected on the 21st of May with a possible round on the 22nd of June.
We are so sorry for that technical mix-up. Now we take you out of the country still, precisely in Tanzania, which is currently on alert after weeks of torrential rains and floods, which ravaged some regions of East Africa, killing more than 100 people. And in Togo, the ruling Union for the Republic Party, UNI, has won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections held on the 29th of April. A run of these stories with Cedric Chakutio.
Rains and strong winds have caused damage and more flooding as Cyclone Hidaya lashed Tanzania over the weekend. A major blackout hit most of the country last Saturday as it braced for the tropical cyclone, which came following waves of flooding in the region, which has left over 150 people dead. Ferry services between Tanzania's commercial hub, Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar were suspended as the cyclone approached the coast-packing winds equivalent to a Category 1 hurricane. The weather service says more than usual amounts of rainfall were recorded in coastal areas overnight Friday, while forecasters warned flooding across the region may worsen this weekend. Heavy rain and flooding has caused chaos on the roads and for small businesses, with authorities saying more than 200,000 people have been affected. Hindaya is reportedly the strongest tropical cyclone ever recorded in Tanzania. Elsewhere, Togo's ruling Union for the Republic Party, UNIR, has won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections held on the 29th of April. Provisional results published late Saturday by the Electoral Commission showed it had won 108 out of the 113 seats in parliament. The result paved the way for President Faure Gnassingbe to extend his 19-year rule under the new charter. It will allow him to take the newly created post of President of the Council of Ministers, a role similar to Prime Minister that is automatically assumed by the leader of the majority party in Parliament. Under the previous constitution, Gnassingbe would have been able to run for president just one more time.
And now we talk sports. The women's rugby team of South Africa maintains its dominance on the Cameroon-led team at the continental level. South Africa humiliated Cameroon with a 55-0 score at the opening game of the Africa Women's Rugby Cup. Elsewhere, McBreeze is expected to meet with Chief Professor Narcisse Mwelekombi to discuss the way forward as he prepares for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers next month. Smaji Kangable, a sportsman, gives us details.
In the first outing of Team Cameroon against defending champions, the Springboks of South Africa, Cameroon was tortured by 0-55. Already in the first half of the game, Cameroon was losing 0-19 to their opponents. The South African rugby team finished what they started in the second half of the game, as at the end of the day, the scoreboard read Cameroon 0, 55 for South Africa. In their previous meeting in 2023, Cameroon succumbed to South Africa 0-87. The second round of the 2024 Rugby Africa Women's Cup comes up on May 8, 2024, with Cameroon expected to take on host nation Madagascar. Madagascar defeated Kenya in a mouth-watering encounter 29-22 in their first outing. Elsewhere in football, after the various European tour in order to talk with players who could be possibly drafted to represent the colors of the country, the head coach of the Indomitable Lions, McBreeze, is back in the country, seriously working behind closed doors with his assistants to prepare for the upcoming outings of the Lions. Part of the preparation will be at the service of the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education, where the trainer and Chief Professor Narcisse Mwelekombi, alongside Samuel Etofis, President of the Cameroon Football Federation, are expected to prepare for the World Cup qualifiers game against Cape Verde and Angola this Tuesday. McBreeze has hinted that the best locally based players will also be invited to the team, and he confirmed that 3 names are already in his mind. Cameroon tops their group of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers with 4 points.
And that's it for the first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. Thank you so much for staying with us. Tonight, I'll be receiving Barrister Kerem Muna. He is a lawyer and politician based right here in Cameroon. Good evening, Barrister. It is a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight. Minister Paul Atanga wants political parties to desist from pressurizing Cameroonians to register themselves massively for the upcoming presidential elections. What's your overall appraisal of such an outing?
Well, thank you for your question, following my post on X, formerly known as Twitter. The position of the minister, of the honorable minister, is neither founded, neither in law, in fact, in logic, there's no foundation for what he says. The voting is a civic duty, and any Cameroonian who goes out to encourage citizens to fulfill their civic duty should be complemented. So by saying that people should go out and get registered, how is it forcing them to go out? Does it mean that the companies that advertise their products are forcing people to consume? So I think that there's no logic to it. Voting is a civic duty. What is a civic duty? It's something that a peace-loving citizen does in a democracy. So when we ask people to go out to vote, it's asking them to respect their civic duty. And by doing that, we're actually doing the government's job. Now, for somebody to say that voting is not obligatory is actually contrary to any kind of law of civility. If you tell people that the civic duty is not an obligation, it's exactly what we should have been told. So we should go on making sure that Cameroonians know where to go, know what to do, know it's your right to vote, know that at 20 they can vote. And we should continue to do that. If we violate any law of the Republic, well, we await the minister's wrath.
Barrister, voters' registration kits were recently discovered in a private residence in Masagam. It is a locality in the Nous division of the West region. The resident allegedly belongs to a member of the ruling CPDM party. The population came out in their numbers to protest. What's your reading in such alleged desperate attempts to thwart the result of an election that is yet to hold?
Well, I cannot really comment on the fact that kits were found in somebody's residence. I don't know the context. I don't know what it's all about. I don't know who are the people. So really, I'm sorry, I can't really comment about that. I heard about it as well, but I know absolutely nothing about it. But it is not normal for voting kits to be found in private residences. Let's hope it will be investigated and reported to the people as widely as the discovery.
And now, what can such attempts provoke within the context of peace before, during, and after elections?
Well, we saw what it did in the West where it was found. It can inflame and disturb public peace. So it is very important that those, if it is true, and I've heard those who were found with these kits should be called to justice, so at least citizens know that it was not a behavior cautioned by any authority.
Barrister, I would like to know, do you think getting registered on the electoral list can change things? We saw the likes of Edith Kabangwala of the CPP party and that of Maximilian Gombe calling on Cameroonians not to vote or not to register themselves, given that it might not really change or give them the change they have been expecting for several years. Is there really a need for Cameroonians to register themselves on this electoral list?
Well, I did listen to the two ladies whom I respect and discuss with their position. I think their position was not cut and dry as we stated in your question. They want to know the importance of elections within a context where the rules are to be skewed. They are entirely their position. I know President Kawala's position very well, but I believe that massive turnout and a massive engagement of the population, every polling station will make a difference. I did that work in '92 when the SDF, during the SDF election, where the SDF was lost out 4 points. My own calculations were that they won. Very much from the fact that what happened in the East happened. You know very well the governor of the East escaped. Why are we afraid of allowing people to vote? Why is it that it is the opposition encouraging people to vote? So I believe that a massive turnout will benefit the opposition. Last results, there were corruption is rising. And I'm just hearing about the fact that Glenn Cole again has been charged with getting involved. He cannot help Cameroonian authorities in investigations, and again it's been put in a position to mine a cobalt. If that is true, then we haven't hit the bottom yet. Very, very sad.
Barrister, recently the Cameroon embassy in France announced that for Cameroonians to register on the electoral list, they need to present a passport, consular card, and resident permit. Was the LECAM not in the right position to publish such a document? And are these diplomatic representations not going against Section 5? I would like to quote Section 5 on the Electoral Code, which states, Section 5, Article 1, members of elections Cameroon shall refrain from any act that may undermine the independence and dignity of their duties. How can you explain this?
In the last two questions, about what happened in foreign missions and the fact that they appear biased. It is a result of the electoral code. I mean, you have to really be naive to believe that the LECAM is not biased. It's functioning in the way its board is constituted. What do you expect? The diplomacy is under the total control of the government. So there's any kind of independence that can be expected from either the embassy or from the electoral officials. The only chance we have is to put pressure on the system. And the only way to do that is by voting massively and supervising our votes. So I'm rather confident that from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, the eagerness to vote is only increasing. I just hope that LECAM has the capacity to make sure that all those who want to vote can.
Thank you so much, Barrister, for being part of Talking Point tonight.
Well, thank you very much for your questions, and congratulations for the work you're doing. And I'm available anytime you want to talk about the situation of our country. Thank you.
And that's it for today's package of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of more interesting programs on Equinoxe Radio, on Equinoxe Television. At exactly 6 p.m., we have Equinoxe Soir with Sesh Allen Otto. Have a wonderful evening.